listening to Between the Reads, a biweekly podcast that shines a spotlight on books by new and recently published authors. I'm your host, Audra Russell. Are you looking for a good read? Tired of being disappointed by trending books that don't live up to the hype? Maybe you're an aspiring author and feel like giving up on your writing? Stay tuned, book lovers and writers alike. This show is for you. Author Daines Reed, a wildly optimistic lover of words, resides in a small town just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, with her husband, daughters, and pair of miniature schnauzers. She is an avid reader, lifelong learner, and emerging storyteller. By trade, Daines is a registered dental hygienist. By birth, she is a writer, an observer of people, and a lover of words. She cannot live without books and cannot go a single day without asking, "What if?" Through her debut novel, Trust, Daines has exposed a cultural issue that needs to be addressed. She hopes this novel will provide the spark for a dialogue that can push individuals to take a more active interest in the legacies they leave for their children. The forthcoming novels in the Trust series will entertain and enlighten readers as they explore the personal stories of the core characters, providing an intimate glimpse of the issues that impact their lives. Daines,
yes, ma'am.
Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. I'm glad you could be here. So let's get right on into this chat.
Let's do it.
Your book, Trust, it's a part of a series, and it hits on so many issues like financial literacy, caring for loved ones, domestic violence, overextending ourselves for family members, just so much. Talk to me about this book.
Yes. So this book is, if I could take a snapshot of the women in my life and the women that I've come in contact with during my lifetime, this is all of them compressed into these characters.
Wow.
Because these are all the issues that we deal with and we're still trying to maintain, but we all have the regular everyday struggles. So I just decided to condense them into a group of characters that are friends and just take a look at how they explore their circumstances.
That's interesting. So financial literacy, which is, that's kind of the main theme that runs through your book. That's a very heavy and very touchy topic. In my opinion, it's another tendril of slavery that's had a lasting impact on Black people. Money habits that are developed out of a sense of lack, enslaved people who were freed, that some of them managed to make lives for themselves, some didn't. And that sense of lack that our people had to operate out of, they continuously passed down those habits about money, and it was never addressed. So tell me, what was your inspiration for this delicate subject? Why tackle this in your books?
Well, when I looked at the issues and the situations that women in my life have dealt with, like normal things that you hear about at Thanksgiving or on the weekend, just regular issues, seems like it always stems back to money or lack of money or lack of understanding. And I'm seeing that we're all like chasing that dream or trying to figure it out. And we're all trying to figure it out, in 1,000 different ways. And you look at other cultures and it's like they have it figured out. They have it figured out because they have generations of that financial stability, some type of financial independence. We don't have it as African Americans. And it seems like it's it's passed down from one generation to another. So that's what made me think about it. But really what sparked it was a conversation with my brother. He said to me, he's like, we have to do something. We should do something. We should start something that we can pass down to our kids for generations and generations. He was talking to me about buying an apartment house, apartment building. And my first thought was, oh no, you can't do financial things with family members or friends. It causes problems. But his philosophy made sense. And that was, we should establish something and it should be done in a responsible way. And if we lay that foundation now, it can have a long-term impact on the future generations in our family. So I thought that was neat. So that's what really sparked the idea.
Okay, and so these characters, Ruth and the other women, where did they come from? Because they were all very complex characters, and that's kind of one of the issues. There were just so many heartfelt issues in this book. Like, these women all had different problems. Ruth was in a an abusive marriage. One of her friends that was the security guard had gotten married and then very shortly after lost her husband.
Mhm.
There, and it just touched on a theme where we can have friends, we can even have good friends, but we may not always know what's going on in their lives because we're all so busy with our own things. And if something
Mhm.
difficult is going on, whether it's money related or domestic related, or with the kids, there's an element of shame there that we don't want to share what's going on with our friends. So
Right.
yeah, talk to me about how you developed these characters. Were there people that they were inspired by, or were they just issues that you saw come up over and over again? Tell me about that.
It was a lot of issues that I saw come up repeatedly. And like I said, it seems like it always draws back to money. But if you look
Mhm.
at people who are struggling with financial issues, there's something that caused
Mhm.
that. And sometimes it's fact, maybe it's just bad decisions, but sometimes
Mhm.
it's lifestyle issues. Maybe it's abuse, maybe it's, depression, maybe
Mhm.
it's trying to care for everybody else more than you care for yourself. Maybe it's, a
Mhm.
personal tragedy like a death. So I tried
Mhm.
to, like I said, I tried to compress all of those things into a few characters that we could identify with. But that
Mhm.
that was the thing. That was just I tried to do almost like a composite. Just pack all these different
Mhm.
issues together because we're complex humans. Um, and just try to show
Mhm.
how that brings you back to the circumstances that you would find yourself in. And then, like I said, their main goal was not to dwell too much on what has happened, but just try to come together as friends and figure out how to move forward. Also, I worked. I'm a dental hygienist, so the clinical part, the setting of where these women worked and how they became friends. I just drew from my own personal knowledge.
Okay, yeah, I see that now.
But I will
Mhm.
tell you, my friends at work became like my family because you're with them every single day, good times and bad. You can vent to them, you can celebrate with them. They become your very best friends if you're fortunate. I was fortunate.
Mhm.
Um
Right.
so that's why I tried to bring it, not like girlfriends here or a family member there, but your work friends, because that's where you spend the most time and you can make some real
Right.
connections. And in this case, they were able to lean on each other.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I think that's one of the things that I liked that you showed in your book without being preachy. You pulled off a very difficult topic without, some books that I've read, you can almost tell when someone has kind of stepped outside of the character and started being preachy.
Hmm.
But you didn't do that in this book. You showed how these characters had such difficult circumstances in their lives that they made decisions based out of emotion, and those
Hmm.
decisions were not always the best decisions. And when they said yes to their kids, to their moms, like the one character, forgive me for not remembering her name, but the one character whose mother was living with her because she just
Cynthia.
yes, Cynthia, yes,
Yes.
because her mother just did not like any nurses, and she just wanted her daughter to just make her life all about Cynthia. And,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
she was making decisions based off of, you it's kind of like when you get into these traumatic situations, you can't really take the time to think. You just kind of you react instead of being
Right.
proactive. And that can lead to you saying yes to someone, which ultimately means saying no to yourself. And, I think that's an issue that
Hmm.
we all
Hmm.
learn because we wanna help those that we love, but when we help them, are we really helping them, or are we continuing to enable them? And I wanted to just really applaud you for the way that you tackled that without being preachy. You just really showed people that, look, these are everyday people that are going through the same things, and I think you may even, spur people to talk about this book in a book discussion and maybe start to analyze their own lives and start to, make small changes, because they can see that these women, they didn't have a lot of money, but they just decided to make a change. And so they just did small little things that added up over time.
That's exactly right. It's because if you sit back and you look at your circumstance and you need to make a change, or you would like to be in a different position, it's very hard to just say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be 100% different. And sometimes you don't even know how to make the changes. You just know it should be different. There's a lot of self-help books and inspirational literature out there, and even a lot of inspirational speakers that try to show you the way, but it's a lot of information all at once. It becomes overwhelming, and then you do nothing.
Exactly.
So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, or you just feel like because it is too much, you just like, I can't do this. It's just, I cannot achieve all of this.
Yeah. And so, a small change here and there can make a huge difference. It's just, we don't know where to start sometimes.
Right.
So I thought, this group of friends, if everybody's kind of falling down at the same time, everybody has had enough of their own circumstances, but, together they can motivate each other and hold each other accountable and just try something different.
They did. And, I don't like to do spoilers. I'm not going to say what happens to Ruth at the end of the book, but I am going to say why. Why did you have to do that? When I read that, I was like, I flipped back through the pages. I said, let me read this again, because I know I got this wrong. This is not what happened. Why would you choose to, without giving it away, what made you make that decision after they, had such this big thing that happened with Ruth that really helped, their money club, I like to call it. And then you did what you did. Why?
You need answers.
I need answers. I need closure.
Oh my goodness. Honestly, I didn't want to be typical. I didn't want the reader to be able to guess what happens next.
Okay.
I don't like that when I read books. I like to be surprised. I really like a shock. I like to, you read something where you have to close the book for a second to process.
Yeah, you did that. You did that.
Okay, then so success. Check that off.
Yeah, check that off. You did that. You definitely surprised the hell out of me with that one.
But you know what? I surprised me too. I surprised myself, because I promise you, this book, a lot of it was written just by the grace of God. I mean, all I did was sit down and write. So what flowed and how it flowed, a lot of that I didn't know until I actually typed it. But I was thinking a lot about just our ancestors. If you think about slavery, think about civil rights, the civil rights movement, and you think about how many small things had to happen in order to get us to this point in 2020. A lot of the people that made those efforts or made some heroic efforts, they didn't know how that was going to turn out. They just went for it.
They just took the first step. Yep.
Yeah. So I felt like Ruth kind of embodied that. She went for it. She didn't know how it would turn out, or, if it was the right thing or not, but she was moved to do these things, and, that's how it turned out.
Yeah. And I think that, that it reminds me of what Dr. King said. It says, he said, with faith, you can't see the whole staircase, but you just take that first step,
Yes.
And I think that's what, because I don't know if you remember, I told you I'd started reading your book back on the beach in the summer, and I had to just kind of close it because it just kind of, it hit home with some things. And it kind of brought me to tears, and I just had to, I had to put it aside for a little while. And then I came back to it because I felt bad when you were like, did you read it? Because I'm looking for feedback. And I was like, oh, damn, I need to go back and read this thing, And then when the idea came to me to do this podcast, I said, I need to read this book, So I went back through and read it. But I think the thing that really gave me hope is, like you said, Ruth didn't know how, but she just knew that she was going to make a way. She just took that first step. And even with everything going on around her, she just believed that if she took that first step, that, God was going to meet her halfway. And that's what happened. She took that first step, and God just kept meeting her, and showing her the way to the next step. And everything, it didn't fall away all at once. More problems, kind of happened, but she didn't veer off course. She said, no, I'm just going to keep going. And eventually the problems did it seems like it falls away all at once, but it really just kind of happens over time. And then one day you look up and the problems are done. So I think that's what I really liked about that, because that gives readers hope that, what, she was going through all these things, but she kept going even when she couldn't see a way out. And I really enjoyed that about the book. So the next book in your series, Good Morning Beautiful, that's out now.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little about that?
This is Cynthia's story. So when I wrote Trust, there's a lot of characters, I know, but there's about 4 core characters that we get to know very well. And they all have backstories. And like I said, when you come to a point where you're in a circle of friends and you all have your various issues that you bring to the table, you got there in various ways. In Ruth's case, in the first book, she was in a domestic situation. There was a lot of violence and abuse and just trauma. Cynthia's story is different. She's got a lot of self-doubt and depression and some confidence issues and certain types of addictions that, she may not have realized, but they have brought her to this place also. So I took the second book just to explore her life and her situation.
Okay. So are you going to take me through some more trauma at the end of this book? Or are we going to have a little bit happier ending? Please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking towards a brighter ending.
Okay. I mean, you can still surprise me, but can we, okay, surprise in a good way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you won't, you might, I was going to say you won't throw the book down, but things happen, but that's life.
Right.
But Cynthia's story, I think, is a little bit brighter.
Okay.
So be encouraged.
Does she deal with the issues with her mom?
She does. Mama's still there. Mama's
still there. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Mama's still there. But, like you said, when you're talking about self-care and, learning what to say yes to and what to say no to, it's hard when it's your loved one. It's hard when it's your mother and you're a daughter. That I don't think it gets any deeper than that. So she deals with it. Mama's still there. But, Cynthia has to grow as a person. And figure out how to have some boundaries, how to care for her mother, and also how to care for herself.
That's important. Talk to me about why you wanted to include self-care as an aspect in these books. How does that tie into the whole theme of financial literacy?
When I started this book, I just was thinking about Ruth. I had to give her some friends, so that happened. And I was in a book club. I was in a book club in real life at the time, but we weren't reading the types of books that Ruth and her friends were reading. And I wanted to, but the books they were reading, like Think and Grow Rich, The Richest Man in Babylon, they're not necessarily popular books when you're talking about like getting together with girlfriends and drinking wine. They're not those kinds of books, but I wanted to read them. So I just read them on my own and incorporated those into Trust. But as I was reading, I saw a lot that dealt with self-care, like your mental wellness, positive self-talk, motivating yourself. And those are things you have to you have to give to yourself. So I felt like the theme that I was seeing when I was reading those books was, you have to take care of yourself first, get yourself healthy,
Mm-hmm.
then you can make moves and move forward, and then you can help, those around you, or you can meet your goals, whatever your personal goals are.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that until you get yourself together. So
Mm-hmm.
I noticed it's a theme in those books that, just self-care, self-discipline,
Mm-hmm.
self-respect, those
Mm-hmm.
those seem to be a theme through most of those books.
Right. Yeah. I have both versions. I have Think and Grow Rich, and then I have Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dennis Kimball. And I also
Ooh.
have The Richest Man in Babylon. Yeah. So
Mhm.
when you were mentioning the books without mentioning the titles, I was like, I think I know what book she's talking about. I think I know what book
Yes.
she's talking about. It's like a little mystery.
You solved it then, because I wanted to say those I actually had the titles in the manuscript.
Uh-huh.
Um, my editor said you might not want to do that. You just don't know about, like liability with, mentioning certain things, or copyright
Okay.
issues. So she chose to take those out, or she recommended that we take those out. But I had the
Okay.
books in there because I was like, hey, I read them. I would love to talk to people
Mm-hmm.
about these books. But
Right.
I figured, you could kind of get the gist of what those books were about, even without the
Mm-hmm.
name. So that's how we settled that.
Yeah, well, maybe at the, in the next one, you can just put in the back like a bibliography of books that you read. Like
Hmm.
one of the romance authors that I love, her name is Beverly Jenkins. She's a Black romance author. She does historical
Uh
romance
huh.
fiction, and in the back of all of her books, she'll give this explanation, and she'll talk about where the inspiration from her stories came from, and she'll talk about that the characters may have been created, but a lot of the circumstances were real. And then she gives a list of books that she used to do her research. And
Oh,
yeah, so maybe that's something you can do in one of your future books.
I
So,
think I might. I didn't even know that was a thing.
mhm,
But like I said, I want to share that information,
mhm,
and sometimes people might have heard of those books, or those sources, but not. Maybe they thought it's not for us, or it's not something we
right.
read. So I'm glad to
Mhm.
share that. I think I might do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, that would be great. Cause like I said, I was like, "I'm pretty sure that's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Let me go back and read these books." And then, like, you still threw tidbits out there. You still found a way to kinda let people know
Hmm.
without saying the titles, and I thought that was like, yeah, she's trying to throw some messages out here for
Yes.
people to pick up on.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so we've talked about the books. Now we're gonna go to the writing side. Actually, let me go back. So, real quick. So,
Okay.
how many more books are there gonna be in the series?
One, two, three. There's three more.
There's 3 more,
Hmm.
in addition to
Hmm.
Cynthia's story.
Yes. Uh-huh. In addition to Cynthia, the next story is Irene. She's the one that's raising her sons and sometimes her grandchildren.
Mhm.
And then there's going to be Julene.
Okay.
That's like everybody's best friend.
Right. Uh-huh.
I actually started writing her story today.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
so that's coming. And then the last one is going to be Ruth's granddaughter.
Really?
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh, I'm excited. That's gonna be great.
Yeah, so we're going to see the fruits of her efforts down the line, skipping over
Mm.
her irresponsible daughter, and let's
Mhm.
see what happens, in the next generation with her granddaughter. Let's see what happens.
So we're doing that generational wealth
That's
thing. I like
right. That's
that.
right.
I like it. I like it. Okay, so back to we're going to go to the writing side of things because I know that there are readers out there that listen, but I also know that a lot of readers are writers, and so I want
Mhm.
to kind of talk to them a little bit. So, are you independently published?
Yes, I actually started my own publishing imprint this year, or last year, actually, 2019. So I'm publishing my own now.
Yay!
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is the route that I want to go when I get my book
Mhm.
published. So, what was the reason behind that decision?
I had done a lot of research, done a lot of studying around the same time I was writing Trust, because I started writing it and I didn't know how I was going to publish it, but I knew I had to write it. So I just started. And then I was trying to play this hurry up catch-up game to figure out how to publish. There's a lot of resources about for self-publishing, but I was nervous. I was just nervous, and I was unsure of myself. So I just did some research. I found a local publisher here in my city, and I just thought, if I can see somebody face to face and we can talk, I would feel more comfortable about publishing this book, and I would feel like I had help. So I found a publisher for trust, and they were fantastic. But I learned right away, nobody loves your baby like you love your baby.
Oh, that is so true.
So, they were helpful. If I needed something, if I asked, they would do it. But I had to always drive and ask and ask. And I just thought, if I'm doing this, I can do it myself. And around the same time, Tyler Perry, I think it was on an award show, but I can't remember which one. He was speaking about the value and the power of owning your own stuff. And it was right at that same time, because I was like, man, I can do this myself. I'm nervous to do it myself, but it's not impossible. So let's try it. And then also, whether I sink or whether I win, it's mine. And it's my baby. So I'm the only one that can promote it and talk about it. A third party can't do that for you, for your own work. So that's what made me make the decision to just start my own publishing imprint, just do the business part of it, grow up, get the business stuff done, and see it through. So I republished Trust under my own imprint, and then I also published Good Morning Beautiful that way.
That's awesome. Do you take new authors? Is there a way for them to submit to you, or is it just for your books right now, or?
Right now it's me, but I would absolutely help another author to publish. I actually spoke with someone just yesterday who writes children's books, and I told her, I'll tell you everything I know. I would publish it for you. You have to, there's fees associated with it, but I'm not profiting off of that. I would just charge the editing cost, the cover design cost, and publish it. And, if it's anybody's dream to just see their book in Barnes and Noble or to see their book on Amazon, I have learned how to do that, and I'm happy to share that information.
Let's go back to that book cover. That book cover is everything. Did you come up with that yourself?
Yes. It was a collaboration. The book cover for Trust was a collaboration between me and the publisher, my first publisher that I used. I'm a huge Terry McMillan fan. Huge. Yeah. And I wanted it to be something like that, something illustrated and colorful. I was feeling like Omar Tyree and Terry McMillan and just those authors from the 90s. It's like 90s R&B. It's like a different kind of vibe. And I wanted that. So that's what we were working towards. We finally found it. So that's how this cover came about.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I'm looking at the cover right now. Now that you say that, I can totally see the Terry McMillan influence there.
Yes.
I can totally see that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what is one piece of writing advice that you'd like to share with aspiring writers that you wish someone had shared with you when you began your journey?
Finish it. Whatever it is, just finish. If you don't know how you're going to publish, you don't know how you're going to pay for it, it costs $0 to write. Just finish it. Because there were a lot of times that I would tell people, like, I'm writing this book. I'm going to write this book. It's not done yet. They're like, oh, where can I buy your book? Oh, it's not done yet. I'll have it. You need to stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
That's powerful.
Yeah. So I think, if there's a story on your heart that you feel compelled to write, you need to write it.
Yeah.
Forget the other stuff, write it. Once it's written, you can figure out how to publish. You can figure out how to get a cover. Those things, you can figure it out. You will run into somebody like me who will just tell you, this is what you do next. But if you don't have a book, you can't do the next step.
Right. Exactly. You are inspirational, because I actually finished my book 2 years ago, and I tried to go the traditional route, which, people kept they kept saying it's good, but it's just not for us, or it's good,
Right.
but it's missing something. And, it's expensive to try and get. I know at some point I would like to get an editor, not so much for the writing part. I mean, the grammar, all that I've got. It's
Hmm.
just to look for like the holes, or maybe what was just missing out of this book that is making people say it's good, but it's just not, for me. But that's also one of the reasons
Right.
why I wanted to go the self-publishing route. So I think I'm gonna take a couple steps back,
Hmm.
let a couple more people read it and tell me, okay, what's missing here? And then, go
Hmm.
forward, like you said. And I'm going to act like Ruth. I'm going to take those steps
There you go. There you go.
for the self-publishing, and just know that, I'm going to be met halfway. If I take
Absolutely.
the first step, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Absolutely.
So that
What do you have to lose?
exactly.
Just do it.
Nothing. Because the book is finished,
Yeah.
and no one can tell me no if I self-publish. So
Exactly. Exactly. And if you
right.
want to know what people like and don't like, the only way you can find out is to put it in front of the readers. No
Mhm.
disrespect to the big publishing houses, and that's their business. And I'm sure they know it, inside and out. But at the end of the day,
Mhm.
until you put it in front of a reader, you just don't know.
Right. Exactly. And I think that there's more out there than they want to see. I mean, because we all know that the publishing world was dominated for a long time, and it's still in a lot of respects dominated by white people, white
Mm-hmm.
males. We're
Mm-hmm.
starting to have a big push for diversity now, but it almost is like it's trendy to be an author of color
Yes.
now,
Yes.
when
Yeah.
we've been telling these stories for, at least a
Forever.
century.
Yes. Yes.
So it's not a trend. We have stories that are real, that are valid,
Mhm.
that I just don't think the big publishing houses are going to see as valid because they don't look like us.
Right, right. And
And I
they just
think that,
don't they can't relate. I mean,
mhm,
that's just
and
what it is.
I think that's why, like the previous author that I interviewed, Delia, she's also self-published, and
Mhm.
I think a lot of Black authors are gonna end up going that route because they know that their story is important, and they know that it needs to be heard, and
Yes.
the big publishing companies just aren't gonna do it.
Yeah. And like I said, even if they did, because I did the same thing. I sent queries out. I figured out how to write the perfect letter, to get it to these
Mhm,
people, and found them on social
mhm,
media. I tried that. And I got
mhm,
those same responses. It's good, but not right now, not quite what we're looking for. My
mhm,
story's done. Like, I want to share it. And just because, this one
mhm.
person's email, I don't know what they were going through in their life when they saw my email to make a decision,
Exactly.
for my life. So that's when I was like, you know what? Let's
Mm,
bypass that. We're definitely in a time when we can move forward without having to ask for permission. So let's bypass that. And another thing I
mhm,
learned along the way was, a lot of times, even if a big publisher does, pick up your story, they may shelve it. They may not promote it properly, and you're bound by that
mhm,
contract. And like I said, at the end of the day,
mhm,
nobody can love your baby like you do. So if it's yours, you can get out there, you can promote it however
mhm.
you want, and you're not answering to anybody else.
And that's important because, like you said, they could say we're going to publish it and then they shelve it. And if they
Mhm.
shelve it for 2 years, well, now my story's sitting somewhere for 2 years and
Exactly.
nobody's reading it. And
Nope.
I just decided. I said, no, that's okay. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna back up. Find some people that
Mhm.
are gonna be brutally honest with me about my story because
Mhm.
I know my
Mhm.
story's good, and
Yeah.
and then move forward with the self-publishing aspect because no one's going to tell me that my story doesn't deserve to be out there in the world.
Exactly, exactly. Now, if it needs some fine tuning, a couple of things,
Mhm.
you can receive that and you can incorporate those changes, but
Mhm.
at least you're moving forward. At
Right.
least you're not stuck.
Right. Yeah, cuz 2 years of rejections is enough. Well, actually this would be year 3. I'm like that's okay. I'm
Oh, yeah.
and I know it's not the grammar or anything like that. I know it 'cause I
Mhm.
keep getting, "Oh, it's really good. It's just missing something." And honestly, I'm sending this out. This book is about a woman who she and her husband, they buy this house that is haunted by the ghost of an enslaved girl whose spirit is trapped
Mhm.
in the house. And the woman who buys the house
Mhm.
finds out through the visions that the ghost gives her that she's actually the great granddaughter of that ghost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I know it's a good story.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just think that there's probably people out there that didn't mean
Mhm.
any harm, but just they don't know how to deal with that topic.
Right.
Personally,
Yeah.
that's what I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And if
yeah.
that's the
So,
case, they're doing you a favor because you'd rather them leave it alone than to take it on and mishandle it or,
mhm,
not give it the respect that it's due or not get it in front of the right eyes. So
mhm,
that
exactly,
may be a
exactly.
favor to you, but you have to send it to me because I will beta read. I 100% understand the power of a beta reader now.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I had 2 beta readers that were very, very helpful. One was actually on the show,
Mhm.
Mark Avery.
Oh,
They were really, really helpful, and they gave me a lot of really good tips. So now I think I need to circle back and do a couple more beta readers, and then we gonna work on it from there.
yeah, let's
So,
do it.
all right, all right. So we're gonna wrap up now. So I wanted to let you have the opportunity to tell our readers where they can find you on social media.
All right. Well, I am Books by Daines on everything. So that's Daines on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and also
Mm-hmm.
booksbydanis.com, or they can email me at
Mm-hmm.
info@booksbydanis and reach out to me about anything. If you want to get an advanced copy of the next book and be a beta reader for me, email me. If you want to purchase, I'm on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or my website. If you read the book and you need to talk to me about this ending, you could DM me.
Well, you just spurred a thought. I think I may have to have you back on the show very soon and just do an entire episode on how to get into Books A Million and Barnes and Noble, the whole self-publishing route. So would you be willing to come back and do
Yes,
that with me?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Anytime.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm going to hold you to that, and I'm also going to hold you to being a beta reader, Miss Daines.
Please
Now that
do.
we finally got together,
Yes. Please do. Send it my way.
I sure will. So thank you so much for sharing your time and talents with us today, Daines. And until next time, happy reading, everyone.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Between the Reads. I'm your host, Audra Russell. Join us next time when we speak with author Eric Raymond.